Welcome to Totally Talent Podcast by HR.com, your go-to source for all things talent. Whether you're looking for expert insights on high-volume hiring, the latest trends in recruitment technology, or strategies for building a winning team, we've got you covered. Join us for each episode as we dive deep into the challenges and opportunities shaping the talent landscape today. Let's get started.
All right. Well, here we are on I guess on my end, it's the Work Tech Weekly podcast, but it might be a different thing. I'm joined by my friend Mike Wood from HR.com, and we ran into each other outside the expo, and it's just like, yeah, have you got time to record? He's like, I do.
Of course, with you, Steve.
Let's do it. So thank you so much.
For my listeners, this is the Totally Talent podcast where we're killing two birds with one stone here.
Yep. Well, I'm a big fan of your work. I love what you do. I know that you are a keen watcher of the industry, and after way too many days in Vegas for you, because you bookended this with Unleash, and now you're at Transform. Yeah. What's your read on the industry today?
So, I do have this reputation as being kind of like the Lorax, where I'm like, okay, if we go too far, this is what could happen. I stand on my stump and say, what? But I mean, I'm in the space. I've been in the space for a long time, and my eyes are glazing over at all these different vendors, and the messaging is almost all the same. The technology is almost all the same, and it feels like we flipped from having different vendors specialize in one key thing that's now everybody's trying to do everything.
Right.
And it's almost like, okay. And so what I plan to write about this week is, who do you buy when all the tech is the same? Right. And that hasn't been the case in a while. But now, like when the tech's parity, what do you look for? And so I would look at their internal organizations, how they are hiring and firing, where they are getting, if they seem like they're growing too fast, they may be growing too fast.
Yeah.
I would make sure the tech works, obviously, but look at how their customer services and implementation and hidden fees and that type of thing, because it's just like AI interviews alone.
Right.
Like we were at HR Tech last fall, and the entire startup pavilion was almost these AI interviewers.
Yeah.
We come here, and it's almost the same thing, but I swear AI interviews are going to be part of everything in a year. So it's like everybody's scrambling to get that one pickup from one of the big vendors.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, my read is very similar. It's just like, I think that there is a profound lack of differentiation in the space that is, this is not a new development. I think that, there are peaks and valleys of that, but I think that right now we are close to peak non-differentiation in workplace technology. And I think a lot of that is just driven by the fact that, everyone's leading with AI, but they're not really talking at the forefront about what they do, why they're different, and how do you tell them apart. And so, I've had several conversations over the past few days with people who are investors, keen observers of this entire space that are looking out at the expo hall, and they're like, how is anybody different? What's going on here? Just like when, some of the people who are watching the space the closest can't tell the players apart without a scorecard, how are buyers supposed to figure that out?
And it is so fast too.
Yeah.
So like I got my start in employee recognition, and I worked at a company called Global Force, which became WorkHuman. And it's like, okay, employee recognition, WorkHuman / Global Force. They did the, social recognition wall and that type of thing. Achievers did something similar, but they had more gift cards. OC Tanner did more merchandise. That ended up collapsing on itself, and now they all do the same thing. Yeah. And I'm seeing it now in TA. And what's also looming over this is that, hiring has been down.
Right.
And so I've seen the messaging change from last year to like frontline workforce. Everybody wants to be frontline workforce because that's who's getting hired, the nurses of the world.
Right.
And it's really weird. I feel like everybody's scrambling not to run out of funds.
Well, yeah, I want to get to that in a second, because that's another thing that's kind of come up. I think you brought up an interesting point around kind of the employee recognition space, where there maybe, if you look in the pre-2010, there was maybe a more differentiation around a tech stack. By the time you got to past 2015, the tech stacks were all pretty similar, but there was a lot of differentiation around brand. If you look at WorkHuman versus Achievers versus OC Tanner, I think that they were all carving out very distinct positions as it related to brand and thought leadership that made it easier for buyers in that space to understand what were the differences. And I think that one of the insights that I've had, especially as there's some, new rebrands coming out on the market, a Clear Company dropped their rebrand. iCIMS, had one.
I do want to talk about that one.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But what I think is interesting is, so much effort goes into getting to that rebrand and that launch and making a big deal out of it. But really the success of a rebrand doesn't occur until you get to the thought leadership component and you start breathing some life into that brand. All you have is hopefully a good looking, clean slate to start building on, but you have to build on it. In a lot of ways, even if you have a brand that's been on the market for 10 or 15 or longer years and you're rebranding, in some ways you're starting over. It's an opportunity, but it's also a risk.
So I mentioned iCIMS because I worked for iCIMS for a while. I love the people there and the product team and everything, but they're in a real problem where that their ATS, which was once best of breed, is now not best of breed anymore because the technology's changed. So they're trying to put AI on top of it and everything. I don't know, I've been through a couple rebrands. I went through the Global Force Work Human rebrand and stuff. I know it's costly, but the iCIMS rebrand to me just feels like they went with vanilla. And
really?
it just now it's purple and it's just these little people icons. It just looks like every other company. And I miss the, when they had a personality, like the bird, Ike the bird.
Well, and and the funny thing is just I actually kind of liked the rebrand. I mean,
well, they're not selling to me.
Well, that's true, but some of one of the little things about the rebrand that jumped out at me that I'm still I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around is they went from a lowercase I to a capital I at the beginning.
So I didn't notice that at first, and I worked there.
Right.
And now, I see it all the time because it was so ingrained in our mind that it's a lowercase I, and now it just looks like this, parallel line.
Yeah. Well, it's just it was a little thing, but it's just I've, written enough about them over the years to know you better start with a lowercase I. And I feel like Charlie on Always Sunny. It's just sort of it's no longer a lowercase I, it's a capital I. What does it mean?
Yeah, I don't know. So. And then I find out that maybe it was a lowercase I to stand out a little bit because if I see it just looks like a C with brackets around it right now. And I mean, I got to talk to Carly, who was on the comms team, about how that decision. I wonder, was anyone fighting for the lowercase I? Were people fighting for the uppercase I?
Yeah, inquiring minds want to know. For the lowercase I,
because for so long, I trained all of my Google Docs and everything to watch that, to make sure I don't put a capital I on it.
Well, I mean, it's interesting because we recorded a podcast that'll be dropping with Trent Cotton over there, and we had a fantastic conversation with him. I mean, it's just we talked about the rebrand, talked about the things that are going on there, and I came away very impressed with kind of the things that they have going on there. And so, I'm really kind of eager to see, where they take it from here. But I mean, part of it is just this is a guy who's been a career practitioner on the client side who's come over, to the vendor side. And I think that they're definitely, as I was talking about that thought leadership component, they're definitely revving the engines to get that thought leadership engine rolling, which I think is critical. That's, I think, a common failure point with rebrands is they don't think about what's our perspective? What's our POV that we're going to bring? And then how do we, get velocity with that.
Yeah, and credibility.
Right.
Because, he was a practitioner and for many years, and he was a thought leader as a practitioner. Now he's with iCIMS. I think, there's going to be a lot of these, companies that are trying to differentiate themselves that need to get some thought leadership. They need to take a stance in some things because it's just so crowded right now. It's a sea of solutions and we're all just trying to stand out.
Well, and another interesting thing, kind of going back to a point that you made not that long ago is, just sort of the equity runway environment. I was talking to an executive in the space as I was coming in the door the other day. And I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, I'm looking to make some acquisitions, and everybody's for sale." And then we kind of laughed about it. It's like they're for sale at prices and multiples you don't want to pay.
Yeah, I'm also for sale. So everybody's got a price.
Well, and it's funny because I was talking to an investor this morning about it. And he's like, "Yeah, everybody's for sale, but." people that were asking for absurd multiples, not even that long ago, are now getting, well, either your read is hungrier or more desperate. And so I think that, we're definitely in an environment where there's more companies that either want or need to get acquired than can get acquired. And at a certain point, the music's going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be out of runway, and we're going to see a lot more companies just, I think, shutter.
And from the marketing standpoint, like a lot of these vendors and stuff have cut way back on that. Like
Yeah.
I haven't. It's funny, like the amount of money that they're spending for like basic awareness and stuff has gone like way down.
Sure.
And so we're in a position right now where everybody's holding on to their assets and whatnot. Time's ticking. And
Yeah.
so, and the other thing I'm looking forward to at HR Tech is, okay, now we have a year of promises that people have made.
Yeah.
And who's going to deliver on those promises? And because things are moving so fast, it's like, when I look at the startups, a lot of them are like what they created would have been amazing 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And now they're just lost.
Yeah. Well, I think that, the velocity of the market has become, I think, a challenge for everyone. You have, I guess someone was saying the other day about, it used to be a 24-month release roadmap is now down
Yep.
to a 3-month release roadmap.
Yep.
And that puts a lot of pressure on product teams, but it also puts a lot of pressure on sales teams and ultimately buyers. And I think that, we're coming on the heels of the, of SaaSpocalypse now. And I think that one of the interesting things that kind of came out of that is another conversation I was having about how there is still there's still a reckoning to be had. So you look at like the largest strategics, they're all having to rethink their models. And there's, I heard that, one big player that shall remain nameless has said, declared a moratorium on acquisitions for the next 3 years. We know that's BS at the end of the day.
Can't wait 3 years.
Yeah, no, they won't wait. But the thing is that you're seeing, I think, a freak out at the top end of the market, and it hasn't worked its way through the entire ecosystem yet. And so I think that I would anticipate we're going to see some interesting rumblings in the market over April and May.
I think we'll see a lot of acquisitions in HR Tech in the fall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think that there's going to be a lot of people realizing that, okay, we were interested in an acquisition. Now we have to make an acquisition. Yeah. We have to exit. So.
And so you see, like, I mean, I follow the funding and, that type of thing. I take note of it. I don't know, like, I don't have a background in, startups and getting the valuation stuff, but you see a lot of these tools that have a flashy booth or whatever that have taken, 3 rounds of funding and stuff.
Yeah.
And, that bill's going to be due at the end when you sell.
Right.
And so there are a few companies that have really been kind of quiet in building some of the best tech that's out there. I will give a shout out to Jovio. I'm very impressed with their team and what they've done. It's funny, they're engineering first. And I know that their technology is probably used by a lot of the other vendors and stuff, but they don't need that marketing and sales engine. They'll let somebody else do it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, that's a great model.
It's a great model to have. Yeah.
Let someone else handle the sales part of it.
And then I did try out some solution last week. It was a startup type AI interviewer. Mm-hmm. And whoever was giving me the demo shouldn't have given me the demo because it was asking me, I was basically going to be, they were hiring for an auditor. Right. At PwC. And they asked me what my qualifications are. And I said, I clean bathrooms at the local high school and stuff. I'm like, I'm a janitor or whatever. And it just completely ignored it. And so I'm like, okay, that's number one problem is that it can't. So I'd advise buyers, take the AI interview yourself, try it out, try these things out because, there are some solutions that are vaporware that are out there.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I think that there's what I think is interesting right now is when you're looking at, certainly it seemed like there was the SaaSpocalypse, rumbling. And then it seemed like there was a market sort of right sizing and awareness that, oh, you know what, enterprise software isn't going to go away because it deals with complexity on the regulatory side and the compliance side that is, you can't vibe code your way through that. And so, there was, I think, a bit of a sigh of relief, but by the same token, I was talking to somebody who was mentioning a panel they were on with, they were, CHROs from big companies. They're like, oh yeah, we can develop, with with Claude Code or whatever, we can build whatever solution we need. And I was just like,
It's close though. So I will tell you, like there's a couple big technological moments in my life that I will never forget. Like the first time I downloaded music as an MP3 off of Napster.
right,
I think I was in high school and I remember I set it up like overnight because I had
yeah,
dial up.
right,
And once I did that, and once that song came in my inbox, I'm like, this is going to change everything.
yeah,
And so, I mean, there is AI hype and stuff like OpenAI when it first came out to me. I tried to use it for writing a little bit,
yeah,
but it feels kind of like a parlor trick
yeah,
in that it will tell you kind of what what you look like, but then it will forget things.
right,
It's very forgetful. It's the Eeyore of,
right, right.
but then I got into Claude this weekend because I've been reading a lot about Claude and I'm amazed with what it can do.
Oh yeah, it really is pretty phenomenal. And it's just like especially if you're using, the enterprise team edition and you really are able to calibrate it to whatever the task is. If you have, the amount of training data that allows it to really dial in, especially around writing, yeah, you can do some amazing things. That said, it still misses things that it
You
should
still
do.
need to get in there
Yeah.
and like it can do a good draft and a good starting point,
Yeah.
but if you really want to write in your voice, you have to go over it and can't just set it and forget it.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like I mean, probably like a lot of people in the past couple of years with what's going on in the US, I doom scroll a lot before I go to bed or whatever. I'm like looking at Reddit, I'm looking at all these things. Well, last time I'm like, maybe I'll try to vibe code something. And so I had this idea where I would I'm a huge history nerd and I love like going to new places and pulling up the Wikipedia app and looking at the location and it will tell me different articles around me. So I'm like, what if I created a walking buddy that did that? So I vibe coded it like in an hour or something
Wow.
last night. And I'm like, it probably doesn't work, but like
Yeah.
if you are a small business owner or something
Yeah.
like that, I would, and I sent a note to all my friends. I said, you got to learn Claude.
Mhm.
Like this, you got to learn how to talk to systems like
Yeah.
this because this is going to be like learning how to use Google.
Yeah. Well, there's been just, I mean, the degree of just my take. I mean, going from like enterprise OpenAI to enterprise Claude, the difference was not insubstantial. It was a significant improvement in just quality, speed, capability, everything. I mean, I mean, to a shocking degree. And then when you kind of bring in the Claude Code element and some of the other things, it's so easy to, basically spin up skills or artifacts to do any number of things, and a lot. Then all of a sudden it becomes okay. I just need to spend some time thinking about what it is I need to do, and then just start kind of like stitching all these things together. So I mean, it's exciting and frightening at the same time.
It's smart on Anthropic too,
Yeah.
because now like I don't ever want to get rid of this tool now that I've used it. I mean, it is so great at like I had it read every old version of the rap that I write. And like tell me what my voice is, tell me how to differentiate, and it was spot on.
Yeah.
Whereas OpenAI would have been like, it's okay. It would have been almost there. But what I want to ask you is, as you're working with clients and stuff, so my wife works for a large hospital system.
Mhm.
She could get a voice screening agent that would save her so much
Yeah.
time, but you can't get like the buying cycles and, for some of this old technology.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you partner with someone like Workday to try and get in there, or it's just tough to
Well,
get people to change.
Well, and then when you get into the regulatory environment, if you're in a highly regulated industry like healthcare, it's just like, then there's a whole other level of risk that, it's, if you're an end user, it's super annoying. But when you look at the level of cyber threats that are coming at healthcare organizations, yeah, you have to be that paranoid. And I think that, one of the significant risks in vibe coding anything is, you know, they are just fraught with holes and
Oh yeah, you could just vibe
vulnerabilities.
code your way into that. You can
Yeah.
vibe code a hack.
Oh yeah, and so it's just like a lot of the people who are much smarter than me who talk about how they're using vibe coding is like it's a great way to get to a prototype that maybe would have taken you months previously. You can get there in a day or two, or sometimes even
Yep.
hours. And when you think about for $50,000 investment, you can get what would have been $2 or $3 million required minimum to get to the same level of product. That's a huge advantage if you're a startup. But you get to a point where it's just like, okay, I got my rough draft. I have my MVP.
Yep.
But to have this ready to go public, I've got to spend
No,
some
you
serious
can't
time.
trust it completely, and
Yeah.
it's so a lot of like HR tech is like a window into society, and
Yeah.
to me it's almost like the self-driving cars
Yeah.
from maybe, I don't remember when they first started. Well, maybe I first started seeing them in like 2018 or something
Yeah.
like that. But I still have not gotten into one of these self-driving cars, partially because I'm not 100% sure it's going to drop me off in one piece and alive. But now we're at the point where you have like the driverless ones that are all over the place now here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
technology's moving fast. It's tough. It's tough because the technology is moving faster than people want to hire.
Well, and the technology is just moving faster than the people are comfortable with adoption as well, and I think that that's one of the big tensions that, I think it was present this week at the conference. It's just like here are vendors talking about agentic AI and how AI is going to transform everything. And I think that at the buyer level and at the end user level, there's a lot of skepticism and fear, and um, their ability or willingness to adopt these solutions is not moving as fast as I think the market either wants or needs.
Mhm.
And so you kind of wonder at what point does that start to catch up with the market?
I wanted to pick your brain about pricing
Okay.
because there's a lot of the legacy vendors that are, have the enterprise level.
Yeah.
And I feel like the tech is so good now that you might be able to save a fortune by going to a smaller
Yeah.
vendor.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that we're going to start to see a lot of cost compression really kind of, come to bear. It's just like if you are, I don't know, if you are General Motors, maybe you're not going to move as fast. But if you're a smaller organization and have the ability, just thinking about the cost savings on some of these things, the technical debt in legacy players is enormous, and it's not an easy solve. And it's just like if you can find the right innovative player, I think that there's the ability to, for forward thinking organizations to really save tremendously on cost. But I also think that the biggest brands of 2030 maybe aren't even launched yet.
No. Yeah. Yeah. I think, the people who've gone AI native first are ahead.
Yeah.
They've jumped the gun in
Yeah.
terms of what's going on there. But these, if the other thing I would look at is customer service.
Yeah.
If you go with one of these big vendors, you're a number.
Right.
So if you can have someone that you can actually talk to on the phone to solve a problem,
Yeah.
and maybe the bigger vendors do that with like a premium tier pricing for customer service, which is just insane.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, because I remember when the touch tone customer service options came out, they're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be great. But now everybody just rage hits that 0 to get to talk to a real person.
Well, and I think one of the things that's interesting that I'm picking up on is that um, for the longest time in SaaS growth models, you didn't want to have any service revenue in there because it basically it screwed up all your tables. And so it's just like there was this relentless tech purity that you wanted to have. And I think that you're starting to see that change. You're starting to see, some of these players that have some size and scale starting to spin up services support orgs because they realize that, guess what? Buyers actually want that, and they need that. And I think that especially as the buying environment changes and the market is changing rapidly, it's just like customers need more support. They need more hand holding. And I think that if you're talking about differentiators, I think that you're going to be able to differentiate on your quality of service, whether it is excellent or poor. So
It's a crazy time we live in.
it is a very crazy time. Well, I know.
But it's fun though. It's very interesting. I do think that everybody, like, as hiring has gone down, which it has. I think that it's almost like they're ripping things down to the studs, and then they'll build back up from that. I think hiring will come back, but it is a complete transition period over the past 2 years, maybe.
Yeah. Well, it's just there's so many sort of, I think, contradictory signals in the market. I think that the fact that unemployment has stayed pretty flat in the U.S., I think, has left a lot of people scratching their heads. And I don't know if it's because when you see the level of you know workforce reductions that are going on just in the tech industry.
Yeah, Meta today got rid of a couple hundred people.
Yeah, so it's just like when you see that kind of thing going on, you're like, okay, and the needle's not moving up on unemployment. What's going on? Are we just and then it's just like what healthcare has obviously offset some of that, but then what is also interesting is just like what is the impact of the immigration strategy on the workforce? Have we been deporting workers and basically keeping unemployment low because rifts with deportations keep everything? And I know that is really ugly, cynical math, but
it's true. I mean, the deport, you can't build up an entire industry over the past 30 years, or like the country, like our country is run on that immigrant labor force that's on the bottom, that's working on the farms, that's service jobs, and you can't just rip that out,
right?
Because and it's funny, like look at California, for example. Like they have the highest minimum wage or something like that. Look at what's happening to all the prices over there. And so it's like, they're like, oh, we got to pay these people this much. Okay, we'll pass that on to the consumer. Like I'm a dad. I got 2 kids. I obviously go to McDonald's a lot because one of my kids, it's one of the 5 things that she eats is nuggets. And the price of everything has just gone through the roof.
Right.
And now McDonald's is like, well, we got this Arch Deluxe, and it's not an Arch Deluxe, whatever it is. Maybe that is what it is, but it's like $11 still. And I'm like, I don't want to pay $11 for McDonald's. I thought I've made right choices in my life to not pay $11 for McDonald's.
Well, and it's just like everything's more expensive, but it's just, from the labor market standpoint, I think the thing that sort of like has got me scratching my head is it's like, okay, so between tariffs and immigration and everything else going on, and now we've got war, it's just like, at what point is this tsunami of factors that is driving up, potentially going to drive up costs, finally going to hit the economy?
I think we're going to hit a wall somewhere. I hope we don't, but I feel like we're going to hit a wall because things have been, like everything's been going up infrastructure wise. Like my electric bill is insane.
Yeah.
And I'm in the Northeast, so I used to have some electric coming down from Canada, but
not anymore.
Thanks, Donald, for that. Yeah, let's piss off the nicest people in the world.
Yeah, that's really some doing there.
Yeah, exactly. And it just, there's that. There's and I feel like, the U.S. needs to adapt some sort of safety net, social security safety net, whether that's universal basic income, which I don't necessarily believe will solve things, because we've seen, like, I got checks from the government for having kids during COVID. And guess what? I got taxed up the wazoo. That basically what those checks were was a loan on my tax return.
Right.
And so it's not real money. And plus everybody sees, okay, if everybody's getting money, let's just raise the prices.
Right. And so, I mean, I understand the argument behind UBI. I still don't understand, number one, how you would operationalize and stand it up, and 2, how it would not just drive up inflation, just make everything else more expensive. So I don't know. I'm still skeptical there. Another thing I'm skeptical about is, it's really one of the interesting things about AI that I don't think we talk about enough is we're talking about kind of the front end and how is it being used in the workplace, but then there is the data center and energy thing. And so one of the most interesting things I think going on in the country right now is somehow AI has managed to bring, red and blue, left and right together.
Nobody wants the data center.
Nobody wants a data center. It's just like
it's like having a paper plant. So like my community at home, Westminster, used to be a paper town and stuff. And I think Robert Kraft from the Patriots wants to put a plant there. Nobody wants a paper plant in there, but a paper plant has to go somewhere to make paper.
Right.
So yeah, nobody wants these data centers because they're just going to leech off of whatever the local community is.
Well, yeah. And it's just like, I think that everyone's kind of wised up to the fact that, yeah, this is actually having an impact on your utility bills and your electric prices, and at a certain point it's going to, impact water usage and lots of other things. And so I think people are, it's taking NIMBY to a whole new level. It's like nobody wants that in their backyard. And so, but it has to go somewhere. And there's all of this money. I mean, more money than I think we've ever seen invested in anything in the history of American capitalism going into building data centers. At what point does that basically cap out? Does it like, oh, you know what? We have overinvested and overbuilt in data centers? Because it happens anytime there's an infrastructure investment. It happened with railroads, it happened with telecom. It's inevitable that it happens. And so what happens when that happens? It's just like, that's the thing.
Well, and can't they make them solar powered? Like, I know that the government kind of turned its back on renewable stuff, but if I had to have one in my neighborhood or whatever, make it solar powered, make it self-sustainable.
Well, yeah. Well, and it's just like if you were in a European country, that's absolutely how they would handle it. That or wind. And here, I think they're all going to be run off coal here pretty soon. So
that's smart.
Yeah, just good, clean American coal.
Good black lung coal.
Exactly.
Wait, didn't Trump say like good, clean American coal a bunch of times? Yeah. It's an interesting time to be alive. Like, to me, like when I was growing up, so in the 90s, I always kind of like, I would learn about the 60s. I'd be like, I wonder what I would have done in the 60s. Would I have protested or whatever? Like, this is the 60s now for this generation, this decade. And so there's so much going on. I mean, I'm going to go to the airport later and ICE is going to be there. Hopefully I get to heckle them a little bit because it's just, the direction that we're going, pissing off the rest of the world in a global workplace is not good. And plus, like, my healthcare is tied to my work. Yeah. And so when you are we essentially work in the global economy. There's these EOR companies that are springing up all over the place. Yeah. Whereas, someone with my skills and whatever over in the Philippines or whatever is not going to, you don't have to pay them benefits and you don't have to pay them the cost of living that living in Massachusetts is.
Right.
And so now I'm at a disadvantage. And so that's what I worry about for like my kids in the future is like, are American jobs almost going to be all service oriented or where you need to be like on the front lines?
Right. Well, and it's just, this is sort of like the last vestige of offshoring. It's just like, great, we're not going to hand out H-1B visas the way we used to. Well, you know what? If you've got an internet connection, you don't need to, you can work from anywhere in the world. So,
the only restriction right now is time zone.
Right.
So it's like, it's like half my team is out in, Southeast Asia and they're fantastic. And the only problem is that they're 12 hours ahead or whatever. Yeah. And you can get used to that. But it's just like, I worry that, salaries and everything are coming down. What's going to happen. And I think one of the reasons why we're not seeing a lot of spending in the space is you can't plan anymore.
No.
Like, do you remember how often we were talking about the future of work?
Yes.
Ever since I started in this industry in 2013, we were like, well, are you ready for the 2020 workplace? Steve, are you ready? Turns out no one was ready for the 2020 workplace because it was COVID.
Right.
And so, what I find that's really tough as a buyer right now is trying to make the decision to pull the trigger on one particular solution when 6 months down the line, something better could be coming.
Right. Well, and I think that they're not by and large, I think that you're seeing a lot of paralysis. And I mean, you're seeing that, buying cycles, pretty much across the board are extending. You have more people on the buying committee. And I think that it's just like everyone is trying to, mitigate their risk. And at a certain point, you can't. You have to just, if you get to a point where you can't put off a decision any longer and you have to take a leap. But taking that leap is with a software purchase or which AI model you're going to go. I mean, it's
because you get it wrong, that's your job.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the other thing is especially in. I don't want to. Yeah, actually, I do. I want to blame private equity for this. It's just
okay. Good.
You've got basically all this PE money that is going into companies, and everybody is walking around worried. I am one fuck up away from losing my job. And it's just like, that's just no way to run a company with that level of fear,
No. And you're going to see, so what I think is going to happen to, and it's already happened to like, kind of like people like you and me, that you end up becoming your own entrepreneur type of working solo with a bunch of different, I think there's going to be more of these fractional people that are out there because nobody wants to invest in benefits and whatnot. So we're all going to be in this fractional economy where I have like 5 different jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. The gig economy is coming to the white collar workforce. And I think that's very much going to be the case. And I mean, and I think that, where this kind of ties back to is just like where, and this hasn't been resolved and it's not going to resolve quickly, is what is the social contract? It's just like what are the presumptions that we are bringing into, if I do this, then I will have a relative amount of stability or security.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, you look at, the entire post World War II era was one particular social contract. And that has pretty much come to an end at this point. It used to be, it's just like, great, if I am middle class and I go to college, I know that I can get employment and do well, and my kids will be okay, and they can go to good
Yep.
schools, and I can retire, and I can buy a home and all that. And it's just like,
Not anymore.
all that's frayed.
So my dad worked at the same company for 50 years.
Yeah.
So I can't talk to him about this stuff because
Right.
he just doesn't get it. But
Right.
like, he's got a pension, and he knew that if he worked hard, they would develop him.
Right.
Companies now, I'm not sure if they want to develop people anymore. They just get rid of them and bring someone else in.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I think there was a Wall Street Journal article the other day about companies that are doing it right from a hiring and training and career development standpoint. And most companies aren't doing anything at all. A lot of companies do one or two or three things well, but like by and large, the companies that are hitting on all cylinders are all legacy, huge companies. They're Boeing, they are, Hewlett Packard. They are not small companies, and that's just not the reality for most people. Having that level of support and development just doesn't exist.
So I graduated college in 2005, and I was told if you get a computer scientist, that degree was the number one degree, followed by like accountants, and those people were safe, and that was the way to go. But now and you always want to work for the Googles, the Metas, and whatever in the
Right.
world. I wonder if there's going to be a backlash where you don't want to work for that giant faceless corporation that's just going to cut your job and your life when Mark Zuckerberg wants another doomsday bunker.
Well, I think we're already there.
Yeah.
I think that, and I mean, it's just like, look, no one is going to cry for the tech industry, nor should they. When you think about, how in a zero interest rate environment, tech jobs were plentiful and cushy, and you had the ping pong tables and the kombucha bars and all that stuff. And it's just like you could change jobs every 18 months and see a 35% bump in pay and a better title, and you felt like you were kind of working your way up the ladder. And then all of that has completely changed. And I think it's a hard individual reckoning, both for the industry and for the people we know in this industry. But, like I said, no one's going to cry for the tech industry.
No, and it's also like, so we've hollowed out the middle class.
Yeah.
I probably used to be middle class. I probably would be considered mostly middle class if I didn't live in Massachusetts, but it's like everything is paycheck to paycheck. And you used to be able to like, okay, if I have a job, I can have a house, 2 kids, decent car, and be able to go on vacation once a year. Now you're watching your groceries, you're watching everything, and you're trying to get creative with vacation trips. Like I took my kids, instead of Disney World, because Disney World is like $7,000. I took them to this knockoff type of place up in New Hampshire called Storyland, which if you're from New England, it's the exact same that it always has been. When I walked in there, it was the exact same thing. Yeah, my poor kids had to meet a Cinderella. Then they found out, I think it was maybe like a week later or something. They saw a picture of the real Cinderella castle, and
they're like, Dad, completely.
She's like, but I had tea with Cinderella. I'm like, I'm sorry, that was someone playing the role of Cinderella. And she's like, you lied to me.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, that's you're going to have to pay for that therapy eventually. So,
but even if you look at Vegas, like the stuff on the Strip is all marketed towards the highest of the high now.
Yeah.
And whereas I'm staying at the South Point Hotel, which is great for the average guy, it's a lot more of that old fun vibe.
Yeah.
Like I'm not having fun when I'm spending $25 at a table game or something. Like you can't. Or I'm paying $8 for a Gatorade.
Yeah.
That's not fun. So I think the whole society is going through like a big change right now. I hope we find our footing. I hope we stop pissing off the rest of the world. I'm sorry. I always hate having to apologize for the US when I go to other countries. It's just, yeah.
Well, we're kind of ending on a down note here, man.
Doom and gloom.
I thought we were supposed to have strike an optimistic tone.
Well, I think we'll all find our footing, and I think society and everything, like, they have to get down to the bad to see what good to change. You have to, like, so I think, things hopefully can't get worse, but I think that, and I mean, honestly, using some of these AI tools, use them personally. Use them. I used Gemini I was walking by some booth and I was like, who do I know from this booth? Because there's so many vendors and stuff. So I asked Gemini, it goes into all my files and everything because we're a Google shop. And it's like, this person, by the way, your coworker talked to them about this and this. And I'm like, just basic organization was like, just great.
Yeah. Well, I think that, to try to, stick the landing on an optimistic note, I think that one of the things that encourages me is that I've always been bullish on the HR tech, work tech industry, because I know that there are a lot of founders who come in here that want to build a better mousetrap regardless of category because they want to make work better for people. And I had enough conversations with startup founders, AI founders that have that feel that same sense of mission and aspiration. And so I think that I'm optimistic because I think that the DNA of what really makes this entire industry great hasn't changed. And if anything, is maybe amplified by the opportunity for one individual now to have more velocity and computing power and capability than ever before in the history of technology. And so, I'm encouraged. There's enough good that I saw this week that I can, stand in my 3-hour security line at the airport and
Well, and there's enough like logical decisions too. Like, so, like, 10 years ago, maybe it was all like, we have to get mobile optimized. And it's like, of course you do, because that's where your workforce is. Nobody has the money for a personal computer.
Right.
And now it's, yes, AI interviews are here and they are going to be for the better, because everyone will get a chance to interview.
Right.
Like, you won't be waiting to get that call. And then you won't be fooled into thinking that first call is an actual interview when it's just a screening thing. And I know from recruiters that I've talked to, nobody wants to do the screening.
Right.
Just get it done. So, like, just like nobody wants to schedule that hiring manager interview, and there's all that scheduling tech. Just, there are still good solutions out there for huge pain in the butt things.
Right. And I think that, like, especially on the hiring side, it comes down to good communication. I think that, in some ways, having these steps automated is desirable on the candidate side if there's good communication and people know where they are in the process.
And they trust it. Because if you're pulling up my credit scores and all this other proprietary information, I have to know about it. Like, I can't have this scarlet letter on me. It's the same thing with like age discrimination and stuff. Like, you don't want to have to set a certain class like lower than everybody else.
Right.
And so the promise with AI interviews is everybody starts at the same.
Right.
So, I mean, that at least is good.
Well, let's stop there, because I think that was at least that was probably as much optimism as we can muster. So
I worry. I just worry because I read too much. I really need to just like put my head in the sand and go off into the mountains in Vermont and just hang out.
Well, to quote Journey, don't stop believing. All right. Well, Mike, thanks for joining me. It's good getting to talk to you and break this down. I hope you had a good show, and I hope you have safe travels home.
Yes, me too. I love the folks at RepCap. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Totally Talent podcast by HR.com. We hope you find today's episode insightful and inspiring. Don't forget to explore more episodes and discover valuable resources at hr.com/podcasts, where you can listen to all of our podcasts. Until next time, keep leading with purpose and making a difference in the world of talent.